Hi, welcome back to the Finley Formation. This is Brandon.
This is Gage.
And this is Jared.
Okay, we're going to continue on with our team history and off season, and now we're all the way down to the number 10. We've entered the top 10, and this week it's going to be the Bears. And I just want to mention right off the bat here, if you haven't found a team on YouTube, if you're watching us on YouTube and you haven't found your team, it's because I think we did the top third from like 32 to 20 something, I think, like maybe 19. We did those on Podbean. We just did those on our podcast. You can find those anywhere you want to get your podcast at. So we just recently started doing the YouTube thing. So yeah, if you don't find your team on there, you can go find them on anywhere you get your podcast. But that being said, we are going to go into the Bears. So this is I think our second oldest franchise, next to the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So they were established in Decatur, Illinois, September 17th, 1920. Their first owner was A.E. Staley, and he was the owner from 1920 to 1921. So their name, right off the bat, was Decatur Staley's. So that's really, they really went for it there.
Yeah.
Just his last name. So that was the name from 1920. Obviously, it was named after their first owner. Then they moved to Chicago, and then it was Chicago Staley's in 1921. And then they got smart and decided to change it to the Chicago Bears in 1922 to the present. Well, also, I mean, Staley wasn't their owner anymore, too. So then you entered the Hallis and Sterneman era from 1921 to 1923, and then it became just Hallis from 1931 to 1983. So in their mascot, I didn't know their mascot was actually Staley. It's actually Staley the Bear.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's what I read on there. Their first field they played in was Staley Field. Then they played at Wrigley Field for a while, and then now from 1973 on now, they play Soldier Field. I think they took a couple of years off where they played at the college stadium there in Illinois. Or
I think it's Champaign. I think so.
Champaign. And that was when they refurbished Soldier Field and redid everything there. So now they've been in the NFL. I think it's them and the Cardinals are like the only two original teams left. And they've been there since till the present, obviously. 9 league champs, but 8 of them were before the merger. 1 Super Bowl in 1985, and it was Super Bowl 20. One of the best, probably one of the strongest and best teams, arguably one of the best teams ever. And then 4 times conference champions, 56, 63, 85, and 06. 19 times division champions. 6 of those were from 84 to 90. So, I mean, that team was really good. I think they only missed it 1 season. 28 playoff appearances, which I don't think that's too great in, 107 seasons or 105 seasons.
Not good.
Yeah, that's not that great. They've had a lot of down years. They were really good before the merger, and then I think, obviously, they hit stride in the 80s. They had a really good team. I'm surprised they only won 1 Super Bowl and only made that 1 Super Bowl, too, in the 80s. But they made the Super Bowl in 06 where they lost to the Colts. So they have franchise retired players. We'll go into that. We just were kind of talking about that. And their franchise retired players is Bronco Nagurski, which is funny because I think we hear that a lot listening to the radio, listening to the Cowboys games and stuff. Isn't it the Bronco Nagurski's Farmers Insurance Scoreboard or something like that?
What it is?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Isn't there like a college award? Like a Nagurski?
They have that.
That's where I kind of
maybe that's what it is, because I thought there was something on the
I
radio
think it's
too.
Bill Nagurski.
Oh, Bill! I knew that. That makes sense. I knew it was somewhere.
Shout out, Bill.
Yeah, awesome. George McAfee, George Hallis, Willie Gallimore, Walter Payton, Gale Sayers, Brian Piccolo, Sid Luckman, Dick Butkus, Bill Hewitt, Bill George, Bulldog Turner, hell of a name, Red Grange, another name, and then Mike Ditka. And those are all, they retired their numbers. I guess I didn't say their numbers, but it's like 3, 5, 7, whatever. Well, they retired them.
The legendary Dick Butkus.
Yep.
He's definitely an all-time name roster.
Yep, heck yeah. So those are their retired names, and one thing I found out is they have the most enshrined players with 32 into the NFL. I'm not going to go through all of them. There's quite a bit, but I'll go through like George Hallis, obviously. He coached for like 40 years. Bronco Nagurski, Devin Hester, or Bill Nagurski. Yeah, that makes sense though. Devin Hester, Walter Payton, Urlacher, Richard Dent, Mike Singletary was huge, and he was a Niners coach for a couple of years. Ditka, George Blanda, Dick Butkus, Sid Luckman, and then I put Bronco on there twice, but so like there was a few more, but just they were guys that played old school
Back in the plumber
so,
days.
Yeah, so I mean it's crazy. I kind of figured they had. It doesn't surprise me that they had the most, but I think it's quite a bit compared to the next. So with 32, that's a lot of people enshrined. So what was cool is I was going through, and George Hallis, like I said, he coached for 40 years. I think he was the coach from 1920 until 1967 is what it says. So there's a few years in between where he didn't coach, but altogether his coaching career was 40 years. He was 318, 141, and 31.
Wow.
So yeah, definitely a Hall of Fame coach, one of the best to do it. And it's funny because, I mean, that's one hell of a record. But I thought the 31 ties was pretty awesome. And they must have had
but he also
a lot
coached,
of games.
He also coached when you complicated play. You had a counter run. That was like, holy shit! What did they just do?
Whoa, mind blowing.
Where the hell did that come from?
Right. So yeah. Other notable coaches was I put Ralph Jones. He coached for just a couple years, but he had a pretty good record. I want to say it was like 31 and something, but I for some reason didn't write down. Then you got Ditka, who ended up being their coach. He was the coach through, I feel like, probably their glory days post merger from 1982 to 1992. He was 106 and 62 with the Super Bowl win in '85. Lovie Smith, who was I thought was a really good coach. He was 81 and 63. Couldn't quite put a good enough roster to get together to get a Super Bowl, but he got there in '06 with Jay Cutler and all that. And I think he was there through most of Devin Hester's career. He coached from '04 to 2012, so he was there longer. And then that brings us to modern day, and it's Ben Johnson, who just got hired this season.
Yeah.
They had like John Fox was there. He didn't have a good record, so he didn't do very good. Matt Eberflus obviously doesn't know how
talk shit.
Yeah. What was his big goof last year or the year before? Was it timeouts?
It was. He didn't call a timeout on he had like 2 timeouts left at the end of a half. And I think Caleb Williams took a sack or something like that. And they let like 30 seconds run off the clock, and going into halftime, they still had 2 timeouts left. It was like,
yeah, why? And they were like at least within field goal range, if I remember right.
Yep.
So
like at least do something.
Yeah. So yeah, Ben Johnson, I think he's a good hire. He's coming in. I know we mentioned some of these players. I'll just kind of go into the players. Like, I think Caleb Williams is a big player. He got drafted. He was #1 pick. My favorite player for the Bears is Brian Urlacher. I know I mentioned him on the Hall of Famer. Mike Singletary was another good one. Another one to mention too was Charles Tillman. They called him Peanut. Yeah. So he kind of did the peanut punch. What's cool about him is he had the league he owns the league record for forced fumbles in a game, and it was 4 against the Titans in 2012.
Yeah.
So I guess I can mention some other owners. Hallis owned the team from 31 to 83. I think I mentioned that, but then McCaskey's owned it from 83 to 2025. So I guess I think I mentioned a lot of the players. I mean, they've had some other guys, I think, like Brandon Marshall.
Yeah.
You started looking at some of these other that running back they just had not too long ago. Really good receiving back.
Oh man,
Can't believe I can't think of him.
Montgomery.
He was good
Forte?
too. Forte. Matt Forte is the one.
Oh, Matt Forte. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, they've had one hell of a history. I think they've had a lot of struggles, and their overall record, it'll come up, is Sorry, computer's being stupid.
Well, with that coach being plus 150 or whatever the hell, there's no
Right.
way it's negative.
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
Some of the players I remember Urlacher obviously, but his playing mate Lance Briggs was that was like the duo back in the day was Lance Briggs and Urlacher at linebacker position. And then the Jay Cutler trade, I think it was trade from the Broncos because
Yep.
Jay Cutler had a couple like good seasons in there with the Broncos, and they traded him to the Bears, and it was kind of like, oh, the Bears finally got a good quarterback. Well, the Bears are still the only franchise in NFL history that's never had a 4,000-yard passing quarterback.
Right.
So,
Yep. And that was what since they were talking about that since Jim McMahon and all that. So,
yeah, just some of those players that I kind of remember. I just looking at their history since 2000, they've only made the playoffs 6 times.
Yep.
So a lot of that was like
struggling.
the Lovie Smith era. They made it 3 times in just while he was a coach. I thought that was like the biggest thing that they did was get rid of him. He was like, he finished 11-5, 8-8, and 10-6, and then they got rid of him. They brought in that Mark Trestman from the Canadian League. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He didn't work out. He was only there for 2 years, and then Fox was there for 3 years. Nagy was there for 4.
Yep.
What I like about Ben Johnson is he stayed an extra year at Detroit, so it wasn't like a one-off for him, like just like the new hot commodity. He had like one good season in Detroit. Now he's going to be head coach. He decided to stay, which I kind of like reverted back to like D'Amico. I think D'Amico had some head coaching opportunities after that first defensive coordinator year with the 49ers. He was kind of getting some buzz, but he wanted to come back another year, which I think helped him be a better head coach because he's kind of under like the Shanahan system. With John Lynch being the GM, he kind of seen how a successful organization ran rather than just kind of like a one-off. So Ben Johnson being there an extra year under Dan Campbell, under calling the offense for the Detroit Lions, I thought he, being in a situation where they were successful and then they continued that success, I think is going to help him.
But that's kind of what I was thinking pretty much this whole episode is he going to be one of those guys that's only good as a coordinator, like a Robert Saleh kind of guy?
Yeah.
He's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. You put him at head coach and they win 6 games.
Right.
It's like,
He could end up like that, but either way, I think it's going to be a step up from Eberflus.
Yeah.
So I did find this their overall record, even though with hell of a record pre-merger, they're still got a winning record at 798, 646, and 42. And so, like I said, with George Halas, he had 31 of those 42 ties. So it just goes to show you back in the day, they did a lot of tied games. So their playoff record is 17-20, which that's not very good. And then Super Bowls, they're 1-2, so they're 50% there. Their all-time leading passing leader, like we just talked, they haven't really had a great quarterback, is Jay Cutler. 23,443 yards he's their career leader.
how many?
23,443.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I'm looking here, and
they can't find a quarterback worth the shit.
Right, and I'm looking here, going, that can't be all the guy, but it looks like that is it.
Yeah.
And Walter Payton, obviously one of the best. Oh, yeah, and he's also the all-time leader with 154 touchdowns, too, for Jay Cutler for passing touchdowns. Walter Payton is their leader for rushing, and I think he still is second in all-time. I think he still has it. I think Emmitt Smith broke it, and then he's still second.
I thought he was third. I thought Barry had more, too, but...
No,
I don't think
no,
so.
Barry. And then he has it with 16,726, 110 touchdowns. Their all-time leading receiver is a guy I didn't even hear of before. It's Johnny Morris, 356 receptions, 5,059 yards. I don't know if he led in touchdowns, but he had 31 touchdowns. Their all-time leading scorer, which surprised me, Robbie Gould. I know it's always a kicker, but he spent quite a few years with the Niners, too, after that. So he had 1,207 points.
Damn. That might be one of the highest ones we've seen too, though. That 1,200 is pretty damn good.
Yeah,
especially go to the Niners for what, 4, 5
years? 5 years, yeah. He was there for a while.
We were looking at the Cowboys last week, and Emmitt Smith was their leader with like 980.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
So Robbie Gould outscored him by 300. That's pretty damn good.
All-time AV leader is Walter Payton, and I'm guessing that is AV would be
I think it's something to do with win percentage or
Yeah.
something like that, like the NBA's plus minus.
And then their all-time
Something like
winningest
that.
coach is George Halas. So some other notable quarterbacks: Sid Luckman, he was second, and he was second with 14,686 yards.
Jeez.
Jim Harbaugh, who was the quarterback from 87 to 93, is third
Wow.
with 11,567. And then I thought he was a good quarterback. I think he's out of BYU too. Is Jim McMahon,
Mhm.
82 to 88. I know he took a lot of big hits. He's not in very good shape nowadays. 15,000. What was it? 15,013. I think is what it's saying. But for some reason it did knocked out a 0. But yeah, then you got Mitch Trubisky's even in there at number 5. So
Wow.
and he was only there for like 4 seasons.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Caleb shouldn't have too hard of a time getting up that list.
yeah. And then other notable running backs, Matt Forte is their second all-time leading rusher, which Matt Forte was really good. He still didn't come close to Walter Payton though, with 8,602. But he did a lot in the receiving game though too. I think he's third on their reception, third or fourth on the reception, like actual receptions, not yards. Neil Anderson was a good back. Rick Caceres, and then of course Gale Sayers is fifth. I thought Gale Sayers would be up there a little higher. Did he play part of his career somewhere else?
Well, and I think he just played 40 years ago. So
Well, he was 65 to 71,
so
but
they played 14 game seasons, whatever the hell.
that's true. That's
Mhm.
true. So he didn't even have 5,000 rushing yards for the Bears anyway.
Wow. Yeah, I think he did play somewhere else too. I can't think of the other team, but I don't think he was a Bear for his full career.
So like I mentioned, Johnny Morris led in receiving. Then it was Harlan Hill in 54. So this shows how anemic their passing game has been throughout time. Alshon Jeffrey played there from 2012 to 2016. He's third on the
Oh,
list
wow.
God damn.
with 4,549.
Alshon was damn good too, though. He put up 1,200 a season or something.
Walter Payton is fourth on their receiving list with yards,
Yeah.
4,538. And then Mike Ditka, the tight end, he's fifth with 4,503. So, I mean, yeah, they were pretty anemic there. Then for tackle leaders, it's the stud, Brian Urlacher. Let me see here. I think he had career one. Is that what that is? 1,000. It just, when I transferred these over to my document, it went weird. I think it's 1,000 something 46 or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that what you got over there?
Oh, I
it?
don't know. I don't see it.
Anyway, yeah, there was Brian Urlacher. You mentioned Lance Briggs. He's second on the list. Steve McMichael, Charles Tillman's on there. And then I got like single season passing. I mean, believe it or not, it's Eric Kramer. And you mentioned that they haven't had a 4,000 yard season, and it's 38-38 for Eric Kramer. So he went like 9-7 that season. So that's Walter Payton is never did do a 2,000 yard season, but he was 1,852 was his total.
That's crazy.
But he owns 1, 2, and 3 for their rushing. So he has the 3 highest rushing.
Who's that?
Single season, Walter Payton.
Oh, yeah.
And then their single season receiving leader is Brandon Marshall, and he had 1,508 yards in 2012.
And he's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
No, then it's Alshon Jeffrey. But yeah, so I mean, you can tell it's like they've always been more of a running and defensive team. So yeah, whatever they got going on, it's not good for passing. And hopefully, I mean, for them, Caleb Williams is going to be that guy who changes that. But I mean, they've had quite a few quarterbacks in and out of here. Trubisky was a high pick. I think he went 2. He was a reach. I felt like out of North Carolina, he was a huge reach. I felt like that season, and obviously hasn't panned out. But so yeah, that's kind of their history of players. They've had a lot of huge, really good running backs and defense, and so I mean, and I know I probably missed some guys on defense, but yeah, they've had a lot of good linebackers that have played there. I really feel like so linebacker. That's what they should probably call them, is the Chicago linebackers.
The monsters of the Midway, man.
Yep, monsters
Didn't
of the
they
Midway.
have that big ass defensive tackle too?
Bridge, Richard Perry, was it?
William Perry?
Refrigerator Perry, yep.
Yeah.
William Perry,
Yeah.
Yep.
That guy.
But
Yeah.
Remember he had the big old neck roll. Like just watching highlights, seeing pictures, he had the big old neck roll, and just anything he could do to make himself look bigger, even though he was already 350 pounds or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it was funny too because I think it was Ditka, right, as their coach, and I think he said that was like his one of his biggest regrets was not giving Walter Payton that touchdown
in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, instead they gave it to the big boy.
Yeah,
Put him in at fullback and let him run it in, but which was still cool. But I don't think he realized that was going to be their last time in the Super Bowl, which it baffles me. That team was so good, and it was just goes to show you how good the 49ers were. Even the Cowboys were. The Redskins at the time were really good. You know how good these other teams were to beat this Bears team and keep them out of the Super Bowl. We talked earlier about with the Niners one, they went in 81, 84, 88, and 89. That was all right during, the Bears super run there. So, yeah, really good team. They have a really robust history. So
the funny thing is I revert back to when I did the Green Bay Packers breakdown, and Brett Favre has 61,000 passing yards, and then Aaron Rodgers had 59,000.
Yeah,
it's just crazy to think that in the same division for a team that's been around not quite as long, but in the same kind of category as history, that the Green Bay Packers in the same region can find two quarterbacks to throw for twice as many as the next couple quarterbacks that the Bears could ever find. It just blows my mind how that kind of works out, or how you kind of can luck your way into it, or whatever you want to call it. But to have to be around for over 100 years, and your all-time leading passer only has like 25,000. Is that what you said? That's crazy. It blows my mind. That is crazy.
And their best passing season was in 1995.
That
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now it's the passing game's so friendly that they just
we went through the heyday quarterbacks where it was 5,000 yards.
It was
the top 5 quarterbacks. So
crazy.
Peyton Manning threw up 25,000 in 5 seasons. So,
but you have Tom Brady going to the Bucs at 45 years old and throwing for 5,000 yards, and the Bears still haven't found a 4,000-yard passer in 120 some years.
Yeah,
107
seasons or 105 seasons.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think if you bring them up to speed now, I mean, I really think that they've got some pieces together. We talked about Ben Johnson coming in. I think that he had a really good. I don't know who their GM is. That's one I didn't find, but I think they did a really good job of bringing in guys. I mean, they got Joe Tooney from the Chiefs, which we've talked about as one of our biggest offseason moves.
Yeah, they needed that O-line bad.
And then I know they drafted O-line as well, but I think it was down the draft. Let me see here.
Well, they got that Drew Dahlman. He was the number 1 rated center in free agency, and then they got that Jonah Jackson from the Rams.
Oh, yeah, that trade with the Rams, Yeah, and I think the guys they drafted are going to be backup pieces. That Ozzie Trapillo and Luke Newman. You got a guard and a tackle there. They came in the second round and 6th round. I think that, that's a pretty good price on, you're paying a second round pick for a left tackle. So they might not have that much, I guess, confidence in Jonas Braxton there. And maybe he's going to fight for it. I like the idea of him going tight end. I felt like they need it. I don't like that they passed up Tyler Warren for Colston Loveland, though.
I looking at it a little bit, I think they strictly did it for scheme fit. I think that's 100%. He's just better for their specific offense, even though Tyler Warren is better all around.
Right. And we did talk about that after, where it was like, yeah, maybe they, that's what he likes out of him. And, where they had Sam Laporta, where that's who he had up there.
Yep.
I mean, maybe I'll be wrong about it, but I really feel like Tyler Warren's going to be just that much better, though. And even if it fits their scheme better, I don't know. I mean, but I didn't realize how high teams had Colston Loveland. Like, I didn't think that you would need to draft him at 10.
Right.
But I guess turns out that more teams were inquiring about him early on. So,
yeah, I don't think there was enough of a skill gap between them that it wasn't worth taking the scheme fit over the better player.
Okay, well, that's good. That's fair.
I think you'll see. I mean, of course, depending on how seasons go and how OTAs go and stuff like that, I think they'll be pretty similar statistically with usage and everything. I bet they'll be pretty similar.
So I think with Tyler Warren, he would have made more sense if, like, the Niners were drafting him, how they use tight ends, how they use, like, George Kittle, how he kind of like sometimes he'll be in the backfield blocking or like in being a fullback or moving him quite a bit to block in line. Colston Loveland, like you said, is going to be more like the Sam Laporta. Like he can line up on the line of scrimmage, but he's going to be running routes most of the time and stuff like that. So I think I told you, just talking to my friend who's a really good or big Chicago Bears fan, he wasn't, when I texted him when they drafted him, I was like, dude, what are they doing? He's like, dude, that's not surprising at all. He's like, that's the one that they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't surprising to my buddy who's a Bears fan, which he's kind of a little bit more in the know than we are. But like you guys said, I definitely more of a schematic fit for the type of offense that Ben Johnson wants to run.
So I think when we did our draft and going into that, I think we all expected probably a, at least I expected a running back there.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they were going to go for a skill player, I was thinking running back, and they had the chance to take, they're basically the only guy they couldn't go get was going to be Ashton Genty.
Right.
They had their choice of running backs there, which could have been Omario Hampton, that Travion from
Johnson
from Ohio State.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I really expected that, but I'm okay with that. I don't know how much Cole Kmet seemed like he was okay, but I can't say that I was super high on him. You know what I mean? And obviously they weren't either. So I really liked their pick in the second round as well. Another pick they had, which was Luther Burden.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one thing they did in this offseason, I think was actually, I think they got a lot of good wide receivers. I think, not a lot of good wide receivers, but they put in pieces there. Let's just put it that way. They got Luther Burden as being a starter with the other second-year guy, Roma Dunze, and then DJ Moore. So that's not too bad. But, I mean, even if Luther Burden isn't ready, they brought in Zacchaeus Alameda, and I think that's one from Washington.
Yeah, Gage's boy right there.
Yeah, Gage really was high on him. They brought in that Devin Duvernay from Jacksonville, Miles Boykin from San Francisco. Is what it says.
They might have cut a guy or two, but they're definitely got some competition going on over there for wide receivers.
And it's a lot better off than what it was last season.
But I do think where they got Luther Burden would have been the perk spot for Nick Nash. But no, he went undrafted to pair up with Drake Jackson over there in Atlanta, and they're just going to fry everybody.
Yeah, it is kind of weird that he just kept falling and going. And it is funny, they didn't get a running back till the 7th round, and that was Kyle Menange. Menange. And obviously, 7th rounder. I don't think I went that deep into running backs, so I don't know much about him. We'll try to take a look.
He played at Rutgers. That's the only thing I really know about him. Yeah.
So he's buns.
Yeah, 5'8", 211. Rutgers. Yeah, he might be pretty good, man. I mean,
it might be a bowling ball a little bit, but he's
little guy. So I think he's going to give him that power back because DeAndre Swift is your. He's kind of their Swiss Army knife, and he's all over the place. And I like Swift. He's not consistent, or at least that offense wasn't consistent with him. I don't know which one it was. I know they've been struggling. And last year, Caleb Williams, I think he was the most sacked quarterback. I think is what it was.
Him or Stroud,
yeah, him and Stroud, and I think he was sacked like 10 more times than Stroud than the next guy. So. They definitely went for that offensive line. I think they got better. I think they're going to be better. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously they got to have. I really like the pick that ended up going in the 5th round, which was Frazier, which I mentioned. Everybody was like, "Who the hell is Frazier?" When I mentioned him. He's going to be a good cornerback. I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah, I think they got a 3rd round talent in the 5th round. So, I mean, I think most teams. Come 5th round, there was a lot of 3rd round talent because it was a really, really deep draft.
Yeah.
But I do think even in this deep draft class, he was one of the better late round pickups.
Yeah, and they definitely spent a lot more of their free agency doing offense, but they did end up bringing in Grady Jarrett.
He can't be worse than what's that guy's name out there talking shit to the fans, giving up a Hail Mary. Can't be worse than him.
He was a yeah. I remember.
Yeah. Which one was that? I don't remember which guy. Was that Tyreek Stevenson?
Yes.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah, he can't be worse than him. So.
Yeah. But yeah, they brought in Grady Jarrett, which I think is a big defensive tackle guy. Then they brought in Dale Obiangdo from Indianapolis. So I mean, the guys they did bring in on there I think they're going to be impact. They're going to be starters.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge Bears fan, but I think they've set themselves up to be successful. And I think Caleb Williams quietly had a decent season compared to what he had to deal with. And I think he ended up throwing for I think it was like 3,500 yards or something like that.
He's creeping on that season.
Right.
The season list.
Yeah, he'll be there in no time, man.
I like everything they did in free agency. It was obviously trenches with the offensive line and defensive line. And then they, going into the draft, it was...
Well, and they got probably the hottest coach on the market.
Yeah, they did, yep. And then Dennis Allen, I really like Dennis Allen being their defensive coordinator. I thought he did a really good job being a defensive coordinator when he was with the Saints during the Sean Payton years. He was actually, I've kind of grown back onto the Robert Saleh pairing with San Francisco, but I remember when they were trying to decide on who they wanted to bring in, I really wanted Dennis Allen to be the guy. I just like his scheme fit. I think he's pretty multiple on what he can run. He brings a lot of simulated pressures, different front looks, different coverage looks, and Saleh was, I was always set on Saleh just being the 4 down wide 9 cover 3 guy, but it seems like he's evolved pretty well being with the Jets, and he went with the Packers for half of the year after he got fired last year and was on that staff for a little bit. So it kind of seems like all the interviews that he's done with the 49ers, he's kind of evolving and saying we're going to be pretty multiple, stuff like that. So Dennis Allen probably would have been my second choice for a defensive coordinator. So the staff, I think, is there for as far as offense and defense. I like I said, I like what they did in free agency with the trenches, shoring up the inside, both guard spots and center spot for Caleb Williams. He's a little bit more athletic than I think he kind of shows. I just remember him from college, kind of scrambling around a little bit. He can run, so if you're getting kind of pressure from the outside, it's kind of like the Patrick Mahomes theory. Patrick Mahomes wants the interior guys of his offensive line to be solid because he can escape pressure from the outside.
Right.
Quarterbacks hate pressure from the inside because it's harder to escape.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what they did to help out Caleb Williams, I guess only time will tell, but on paper it looks pretty decent. They play in a tough division, I think. I think the Lions are going to be the Lions still. I don't think there's going to be much drop off. The only thing they really lost was their offensive coordinator. Well, I guess we'll find out how good Ben Johnson really is.
Yeah, they lost both coordinators.
Yep.
So yeah,
Green Bay Packers are the Green Bay Packers. I know Gage isn't too high on them, but
yeah,
they're always kind of floating around. I kind of like Matt LaFleur as a head coach. I kind of like their team, so I think they'll be competitive. And then Minnesota Vikings, it's just up to JJ McCarthy for the most part. So
yeah,
they play in a tough division. But like I said, everything on paper looks good for the Chicago Bears to compete.
And the Vikings, I feel like definitely got better too. I don't know if you mentioned that, but I think they got better up there too. And they're going to be tough on that offensive line because I think they're going to be getting after guys. So I think if this offensive line works out better, I could see them possibly being the third or even second team there. I know, like I said, it's tough. I don't see them knocking off, like the Detroit Lions to be number one. I know that, the Vikings had a great season and everything, but I don't expect that to rebound as good. I think they're going to be good, but not, 15 or whatever they had wins.
14-3, yeah.
So, I mean, there's opportunity there, but it is probably still going to be the toughest division in football. Yeah. So I'm looking at this. I'm probably thinking, with that hard division, I still think they're going to improve. I think it's going to be 10 or 11 is what I'm seeing for wins.
Wow. I think it's going to take a rebrand for them to ever be Super Bowl contenders again. I think they're just like they're cursed or something. So I don't care how good this roster gets. I'll never have them as Super Bowl contenders. But I think brand new coaching staff. They don't have. I think they're definitely on pace to be a good team, but I think they're going to have another year of just trying to work out kinks, and they're going to lose because of Stuart Ayers, stuff like that. I think we're looking at 8 or 9 wins.
So, my ceiling for them, I think they could be like a Washington Commanders team from last year, where they're kind of sneaking up on people. They're surprising. They got a brand new coaching staff. Because last year they had Dan Quinn, and they brought in, that offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Kingsley.
Kingsley. And then you had
Kingsbury.
Cliff
Kingsbury.
You had a rookie quarterback, and they kind of surprised people. I think they won 11, 12 games. the Washington Commanders did last year.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I definitely didn't see that last year for them. So I think this is the ceiling for Chicago to be like a situation where they're a wild card team. I don't see them kind of winning the division, but they can kind of get into the playoffs by winning a bunch of games and maybe even winning a wild card game, a divisional game. I don't see them making the run in the playoffs like them, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did. But I think their floor is where they've always been. 5 wins, 6 wins, picking in the top 10, picking in the top 12. So. I don't know. Like Gage said, I think they just have a history of not being very good, so I'm not too high on them. But I won't be surprised if they do get into the playoffs as a wild card.
Okay.
But I could see, like I said, out of all the teams that we're doing, I think for me they might have like the lowest ceiling and the highest floor. There's just so much ground that they could finish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I like your floor and ceiling there because that puts me right in the middle of your floor and ceiling.
It does, yeah. So I don't know. I'm not going to go anywhere. I think they got a really low floor and a really high ceiling.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking 10 and 11, and I do think they finally break that 4,000-yard curse.
Whoa!
With Caleb, and it's not just Caleb Williams; it's Ben Johnson too.
Here's my prediction for that. That specifically, it's going to be like 39-75. They're going to be going into week 18 or finishing week 18, and it's just be like 2 minutes left in the game. They're going to pull him because they're winning or something like that. So he doesn't get the 4,000-yard season.
Yeah, and that is obviously depending on him staying healthy.
Yeah.
So I don't see. I think they still have Tyler Badgett there as their backup. I don't see him being able to come in and carry the team if Caleb Williams gets hurt early.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I agree with you though. It could be bad again. It could, but I just see more stability with what they did in the offseason.
Yeah.
I don't see anything flashy, and I might think their only question mark for me is probably at running back, but I think he can probably get a lot out of Swift.
I'm still not sold on Caleb yet either. I think I know there's just some about him that's just maybe it's the fingernails, something like that. It's just I don't know. I don't think he's quite all there to being able to take him to an 11-win season.
Okay, well that's fair. We'll see. I know I wasn't high on them last season at all, but I really like what they did this season. So yeah, so if like we said at the top of the episode, if you haven't seen your team on here, go check it out on our podcast. You can find that anywhere you get the podcasts. Go ahead and smash that like and subscribe button. Get in on this. Talk to us. Tell us what you think. If the Bears are your team, tell us what you think they're going to do in the comments. And yeah, stay tuned for next week too, because we're going to be doing the Saints, and something big just happened with them. Derek Carr just retired, so I think that has a huge impact on what they need to do, and it sucks that he waited till after all this to do this. I know they ended up getting a quarterback early, but like maybe they would have changed things a little bit in free agency too. But yeah, I don't know if it's just medical. I'm guessing is why he retired. But we'll get into all that next week when we do the Saints. And what's the Saints at 9, and then at 8 we have. Oh boy,
was it Panthers? Carolina Panthers?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Yep. Okay. All right. We'll see you next week.